Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Today we're in a place called Taysir, which is just a few kilometers in from the main road that goes from Nouakchott to Senegal. And this is a place which is the home of the Yaqubiya tribe. Now these people were scattered around the desert as Bedouins, and around 1980 they decided to come together here. The Sheikh, who is Sheikh Muhammad al-Hassan, who's a great Sheikh, nearly 80 years old, and he teaches all of the different subjects here. And he's a commentator of a number of Sheikh Muhammad Mawlud's books, like Matharatul Qulub, Maharimul Lisan, and a number of these other adab books. He's done commentaries of all of them. In fact, his commentaries are probably the most famous of these books. So he's been teaching here for about 40 years. So he used to be down there in the desert. He used to be down there in the desert, just himself, his family, which used to have like one small kind of residence, again just kind of like made up of something, and then there used to be just tents around all of his students. The rest of his tribe used to be outside, and then around 1980s they decided to come together. So some of them moved to the capital, but the others, they came and established this village here called Taysir, which we'll look at later. Now in there they have some, proper kind of houses instead of just tents and stuff like that. And then he's got a number of students that have come from places like Tunisia, Senegal, Guinea, maybe some from other countries as well, that come and study with him. The Sheikh is nearly 80 years old. We just sat with him, and such a wonderful wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's really down to earth. He speaks to you. He's not feeling too well today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him shifa. But we came out here to see a well that they used to use before, and around that well they have another small kind of reservoir kind of thing in which they used to put the water in, and everybody used to take the water from there. So basically, as you can see around you, it's just pure desert. These trees were actually planted here by the government after they established the town, after they established this this village. The government gave them a grant to plant these trees, and I asked if there's any soil under here, because how did they plant trees? So essentially under this sand there's soil, and they have to do some really deep boring to get water as well. This particular little tent here is of one of the students who decided that he doesn't want to be, generally students are housed in these small tents or small huts, literally just like huts with about 4 students or 5 students in there. Some of these students may want to come out and decide that they want to study alone. So they come here. He's built this kind of little tent under this tree. It's maybe 100 meters, 200 meters from the village, and he's come and he wants to study here. So a person who's taking us around is this brother Abdullah here, who's one of the Sheikh's grandsons, and he studied a number of books as well himself. Anta tahfiz al-Quran? Hafiz al-Quran? He's hafiz of the Quran. He's also memorized some of the Maliki texts, and we had a good chat before. This is another student who studied in a similar mahdara. He studied in the mahdara we were in before. ما اسم المحضرة الذي كنت فيه؟
محضرة الفتح.
محضرة الفتح. والشيخ محمد شيخ باه. شيخ طه علي. وأنت كنت مع شيخ باه أيضا؟ نعم
كنت مع شيخ
باه. ما اسم المكان هذا؟ Sheikh Bah, Mahdara Sheikh Bah? Nabaghiya. So he studied there a few years as well. So he's still studying. أنت تدرس الآن أيضا؟
نعم أدرس الآن.
وين في نواكشوط؟ في نواكشوط. In the Walidik. So he's still studying under his father in Nouakchott right now. But he's come here. He came with us here. We stayed overnight here. There's really basic means. There's a lot of mujahada here for somebody who's so used to like built places. As you can see, the ground, there's nothing that's growing here. Most of the stuff here is all imported, and they have to really they survive on the most basic kind of foods, which is kind of interesting. Subhanallah, they have to survive, because that's the way it is. Even the toilet bathroom situation is very difficult for Westerners to maybe get used to, unless they're really dedicated. So this is a very difficult to study, but it's a place that affords you total isolation. It affords you an ability to just sit and concentrate, to just be focused. I think that's the one thing that would, because at night time, they have solar panels that give them a bit of light, but there's no TV in this particular village. There's no TV. If any of these kids want to go out to watch, and they seem to be sometimes, aware of the scores, etc., they have to go down to Tigint. that's another student down there who seems to be going to study. هو يذهب لكي يدرس. Okay, he's going to study down there somewhere. And so it's really amazing to see that they've kept the deen alive like this with all of these harsh means, and just proves the one thing, that Islam can work anywhere. And people love their deen wherever, and that's a kamal of Islam, that's the greatness of Islam, that people love their deen wherever they are. They have a great heritage here, mashallah. As we were speaking earlier, we said that students sometimes come out, and there's lots of open space here, so they come to study. While the other student we saw earlier, he had his own tent built here, more permanent. This particular student chooses to come here and sit under this tree. He's got this low, which is this wooden tablet that he's using, on which he's written his own, his lesson, and that's what he's studying here. We're going to speak to, inshallah, we're going to speak to him. Assalamu alaikum. كيف الحال؟ من وين أنت؟ أنت موريتاني؟
نعم نعم.
ما شاء الله. فأنت تدرس هنا من كم سنة؟
سنة ونص تقريبا.
نعم.
سنة ونص.
سنة ونص. So he's been studying here he's Mauritani, he's been studying here for about 1.5 years right now. ماذا تحفظ؟
الألفية.
الألفية للسيوطي أو؟ ألفية ibn Malik. So he's studying a book on grammar called Alfiya ibn Malik, and he's written his lesson. Do you want to take a close-up of the law? So that's the Maghribi script. That's the Maghribi script. كم يوم تحفظ هذا؟
10 أبيات.
في؟
مرة 15.
هذا 10 أبيات؟
10
10
أبيات.
أبيات. أو كم أيام تحفظه؟
16 تقريبا.
Oh, mashallah. So he's gonna learn, memorize all of this. This is a book on grammar, as I mentioned. mashallah. فأنت تجلس هنا كم ساعة؟
4 ساعات.
So he sits here for about 4 hours, mashallah, studying. mashallah, barakallahu fikum. inshallah, barakallahu fi ilmikum wa fi hifzikum, inshallah, fi amalikum. Jazakum Allah khairan. Wad'u lana. So this is Taysir, the village of Taysir. As you can see, there's probably about 50 houses or something like that down here. The masjid is right in the middle, and just behind that there's that red roof. That's where we slept, which is a small library that the Sheikh has, and that's where we slept. And if you can see around, this is where you've got all of these green trees around it in the middle of the desert, so there's not much else other than that. And in here you've got the original people of the city living here, and along with that you've got a lot of the students. Students are housed in these kind of buildings sometimes where they share, and then as we saw, there were some that used to just go out to study as well. Bismillah. So كيف ماذا تعمل بهذا؟ كيف؟ Right. So basically this is, you can say, a very simple type of timer or a calculator that they have. So they basically use this to see how many times they need to memorize. So they make that number of boxes. They make that number of boxes, and then after that, as soon as they've done one reading, they get rid of it, and then another one, like that. So basically, while we have these phones and things like that where we count these things on, these people, mashallah, this is the kind of stuff that they use, mashallah, to count how many times they've read. This is, if you look around here, this is the basic room that they have in which these students they study. That's in the corner. They have a box of their books, and you can see that's another lawh or a tablet that they have on which they write. And then down there they have their little stove to make their little teas and things like that to carry on. That's it. That's all they have down here. No beds, just sleep on the floor.
مطلقا او الى اجلا او الى مقدم براس الشيء تنتهي انتقالها راس الشيء البتة والان لم ينجز ويقع ولو مضى زمن وانتقالهم اليوم ان كلمت بلا عظم وان قال الى مقدم في واحده بعد شيء انتقالها الان بتة وان عجلها اجزاء واذا قيل له ما عجلتها واذا كانت وان حلف على اضافه فللذي كنفسه وكذلك بالخمس أو لا يقال له أجل الإله ويتلفون له قولان وإن أقر بفعل ثم حلف ما فعلت صدق بيمين بخلاف إقراره بعد اليمين فينجز ولا تمكنه زوجته إن سمعت إقراره وبانت ولا تتسجن إلا فعام والتفتت منه لا ينقل.
يعني لم يطلق مثلا الكلام لو يأتي لم يطلق على كونه مطلقا والله إذا أجد لم يطلق إلا شيء
المذهب مالك أو
حنفي.
حنفي. المذهب الحنفي كثير.
في بلدنا يوجد كثير من الهنود والباكستانيين والبنغاليش.
هذول كلهم حنفي. فقه أبي حنيفة.
نعم.
يقولون الفقه فقه أبي حنيفة أنه فقيه وحنيفة. عجيب. الحمد لله. الحمد لله. الحمد لله. يوجد هناك من يولفون الكتب كثيرين اللي يصنفون
تصانيف هنا أو
عندكم
عندنا. نعم، ولكن أكثر شيء في الإنجليزية. نعم. والترجمة إلى الإنجليزية من العربية كثير من كتب الغزالي
يعني